what I do is I will give myself 15 minutes to work on it. I don't want to work on it, but I'm giving myself 15 minutes so that I could do those things that I was just telling you about in a project. I could look to see if I have the materials. I could see what all those details are that I have to do. So I could get an overview of what I need to do and kind of set a plan in motion. But I'll put a timer on for 15 minutes. Do you know, often I end up extending my time and working more on it because I start kind of getting in a groove and I think it's not that bad. It won't take that long or whatever. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. I am TD Flenaugh. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Hello, thank you so much for joining us. So today we're going to talk about how we can help our teens and tweens with time management. Now, before we get into our subject, let's just check in, let you know what's going on with me. Today, I decided to take a nap. Now, those of you who know that you're constantly busy, you're constantly doing things, you're constantly like, I have to do this, I have this to do, I have that to do. And then sometimes your body's just like, no, you're tired, you need to rest. And so you take a nap. And that's one of the best treats. You know, when I was a little kid, I used to make sure that I stayed awake the whole nap time. While other kids were napping, I would stay up the whole time. And now I'm like, oh, I need a nap. And most days you can't get one. So that's a little celebration for self-relaxation, rest, and you too may be in need of a nap, okay? All right, so let's get into our topic today, which is time management. Now, according to a 2024 study, 88% of working people, meaning adults, procrastinate every day. And 32% admit to up to 3 hours a day of procrastination, meaning that they're putting off tasks. So, thinking about our teens and our tweens who are still developing and growing, how are we going to be mad at them when most likely you're doing it too? All right, so that's the reality. But of course, this podcast is about getting kids on track for learning and staying on track for success. So we have to talk about this. Time management is the way to help them meet their goals, right? And become more independent. So we want to make sure that we talk about ways that we can support them in this. First, let's talk about academics. So academics, of course, students have major projects, big things to do, and we know that they put it off. Now, they might be like us. They need a nap, right? They might need some rest. And what I want to say is make sure you help them with this task by giving it a time and a date. So you've heard the term, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So by helping them make a schedule for when they're going to get things done, that's going to help the kids get their goals accomplished. All right, so what are some ways to make a schedule? It could be written out, of course, paper, pencil. It could be electronic, Google, calendar, different things like that. But it also can be put on a poster or something in their room, be on their notes app on their phone. So what I want to say about this is make sure you help them choose a method for time management that works for them. And then you can help them assess, but try to make sure It adapts to them and their personality and what's easily accessible for them. Sometimes we want to get a scheduling book and we want to get the scheduling book and give it to them and force them to use it when it's not naturally something that they do anyway. So look at what they have already for time management and help them build. When it comes to academics, when they have big projects, many teachers, like myself, will help students with time management by saying, from 3 weeks from now, this project is due. Week 1, I would like to see your research notes. Week 2, I'd like to see your rough draft. Week 3, final draft due. So I help them segment it. Now, everyone does not do that, and we're preparing our kids for college and career, and not everyone's going to do that for them. So we want them to develop that skill on their own. So ask them how they could break this down, whatever task it is that they have to do. One of the things is going to sound very simple, but something that a lot of times we forget to do and remind them to do is look at that assignment sheet. What is that assignment sheet? An assignment sheet, of course, might be something, a piece of paper, but it also might be something that's just typed out in the computer, their Google Classroom, their Schoology, something like that. So what is it where they have those instructions? That's the basic thing. So have those instructions, and the instructions are there for a reason. You don't have to memorize them. The kids don't have to memorize them. Go back to it over and over again. Make sure that you are planning out those steps that you need to take so that you hit all of the benchmarks they ask you to do. And then to help monitor them, please check in on them, right? If you want them to have it done, 3 major kind of due dates, segments of when different parts need to be done. Say, I'm going to check in on you on Wednesday or whatever day it's going to be around 6 o'clock, or tell them the specific time. And so that you can see that they're making progress. And then help them reflect. Are you where you want to be? What else do you have to do? What took longer? And then also, as they're going through this process, they'll get better at seeing how they work and what works for them. So one example we need to think about is pacing, right? So this still happens to me. Something that I think is going to take me 2 hours may take 6. Something that may take, I thought was going to take 15 minutes, takes an hour. So getting in the habit of timing yourself in a task gives them some information for the future, right? So that I'm not doing that to myself, saying, that should only take 15 minutes. And then I realized, actually, that took 2 hours. So especially when you're doing something new, timing yourself is important. As you get better at doing something or have repetitions in practice of doing something, you'll see that you will be more accurate with your timekeeping. And of course, that's about managing time. So if I need 6 hours to do a report, I'm not scheduling myself in for an hour and then being upset because I ran out of time. Things like projects, of course, take multiple times of you touching it and working with it. And I really am saying touching it, meaning you got that paper out, you got that computer out, you're in that document typing in information, you're reading information to go into that report or project, you're cutting out things, pasting things down, you're doing a layout, whatever it is, it's multiple touches, multiple time slots to get it done. So helping just time yourself is really important. Now, when you're stretched for time, you may think about it the opposite way. I have an hour before practice, so let me get certain work done in an hour. And then you could see, actually, I got half of that done in the hour, right? I was supposed to read these 3 articles. I got 1.5 of the articles read during that time. Right? And so that gives you information. If you have 1.5 more articles to read, then I'm going to need another hour to do that. And then I could look at taking notes and, whatever else I need to do in the process. Another thing about time management is we get sucked into it, right? Maybe they realize they need supplies. And so it's 9 o'clock on a Monday. Our project is due on Tuesday morning. And I'm saying, Mom, I need poster board or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, I need it. I need you to help me go get it. And so that's another reason why you want to check in on your student and see what they need to do. Look at that project sheet or the assignment information instructions on their computer application or on their, the actual paper assignment sheet, so that you're clear about what needs to be done. And you might time yourself and how well and how long it's taking you to check in with them. Maybe give yourself a 15-minute timer and like, okay, let's see, what materials do you have? Do you have the poster board? Do you have the markers? Do you have whatever you need to get it done? And it's a yes or a no. So that gives you, you have 3 weeks or whatever date it's due, and say, okay, so I can go today. I could go on Wednesday because I know you won't be there to that process yet. So talk to them and negotiate with them about what needs to happen. And of course, I always say this, you're trying to work yourself out of a job, meaning they're independently thinking through and going through this information on their own eventually. So you want to, after you may have gone step by step and really been giving them what you need to do next, eventually get to the point where you're asking them, okay, so what do you need to do? How long is this going to take you? And so that those questions eventually will be coming up for themselves, and they're able to navigate on their own when they're in college or they're in their career and someone expects them to get a project done within a certain period of time. And it's up to them how to pace themselves and to chunk that project into smaller pieces so it can be achieved. So the other thing we want to say, let's go back to talking about procrastination. Let's be honest with our kids about our own struggles with procrastination, why we procrastinate. And a lot of times we're procrastinating about something that we don't want to do. And that's just the truth. A lot of times kids think as you get older that you just can do whatever you want to do. And I actually reframe that to explaining to kids that actually when you get an adult, you have more things that you have to do. And then the consequences are a lot bigger if we don't actually do those things that we're supposed to do. So it is a lot about discipline. A lot of discipline because people aren't making us do something. No one's reminding us. If it's not done, we have consequences that we have to suffer because of them. So it's not just our phone being taken away for a little bit, like a type of consequence we might give to them. It's a lot bigger. They may lose their job and they can't pay their bills. They can't take care of their kids and so on. So as you get older, those consequences are a lot more severe. So when we're thinking about procrastination, be honest that you're dealing with this and why you're dealing with it. And some strategies for getting away from putting off something, right? So for me, something I do, and again, you want to share your personal story. What I do is I will give myself 15 minutes to work on it. I don't want to work on it, but I'm going to give myself 15 minutes so that I could do those things that I was just telling you about in a project. I could look to see if I have the materials. I could see what all those details are that I have to do. So I could get an overview of what I need to do and kind of set a plan in motion. But I'll put a timer on for 15 minutes. Do you know, often I end up extending my time and working more on it because I start kind of getting in a groove and I think it's not that bad. It won't take that long or whatever. So that is one strategy, just giving yourself 15 minutes and just getting to it. And with the 15 minutes, you're like, I guess I'll do this boring thing or this thing I don't want to do for 15 minutes. Another strategy that I have seen and I've used before to really push yourself through something is I'll use what's called a Pomodoro method. And so there's different iterations of it, but basically you're working for 25 minutes, you give yourself a 10-minute break. And You do that over and over throughout the day, so you're breaking up your time. Of course, you could tell teens to do that and think about what method works for them. If it's going to be 30 minutes working, 10. All over the United States, 75% of children don't know how to write well. Add that to the fact that so many people out there are trying to silence the voices of those who have been oppressed and trying to prevent them from telling their story. Who's going to tell your story? If your child doesn't know how to write well, I have 2 books to address this issue, the Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook. Make sure that parents know what to do, that educators know what to do to get their children to write better, and just not write better, but love to write. Make sure that your next generation could tell their story and they won't be silenced. Go to fallingforlearning.com today to purchase your set. Join us for Well Educated Wednesdays every Wednesday on Instagram Live at Falling for Learning. It is a free parent question and answer session where parents can ask questions, learn about resources, strategies, and tips to make sure their children are on track for learning and stay on track for success. That's every Wednesday on Instagram Live at Falling for Learning. We look forward to seeing you and helping the next generation thrive. Minute break, setting the timer, getting done, again, chunking that task into little small things that you need to do. If you have 30, different exercises you have to do for English, for math, or science, or something like that, you can say, okay, I'm going to get these 10 done in the next 25 minutes, and then I'll give myself a break, and that's another way. If you don't want to do timing to help structure your time, you could get completion, right? So if I get half of this done, then I can take my break, and then I'll take a break for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I want to give myself, once I do the next half, and then I can take a break, right? Because you may have several different tasks to do. Of course, kids have up to 7 classes, maybe even more, depending on what they have to do. We know the kids are out there juggling, just like us, extracurricular activities, their social lives, their academic lives. Sometimes, they are part of a volunteer organization or different things like that, because I know most high schools require kids to volunteer. And so there's multiple things going on. Sometimes kids are part of more than one sport, more than one extracurricular activity in addition to a club or something like that. So it's a lot going on. So how do they juggle it? And again, the key to that is making sure they're chunking these big tasks into smaller, like a big project into smaller tasks, okay? And breaking it up into halves, thirds, quarters, whatever they need to do to make sure that they're getting things done. And sometimes what I hear kids really talk negatively about themselves when they are procrastinating, like, oh, I'm lazy or whatever. And I want them to get away, and you want to try to help them get away from negative self-talk, because like I said, 88% of working people, 88% of adults are dealing with this. So it's a natural part of humanity, I guess, right? And so don't make them feel like they're less than because they procrastinate. They are not even mature yet. And the people who are mature are still doing this. So it's a natural part. And again, that's why you propel yourself forward with using different methods to break up your time, to give yourself breaks so that you can get your work done. So when we're thinking about extracurricular activities and managing that time, what you need to know about that is a lot of times those have set times, which is harder to deal with, right? With our homework and stuff like that, that's stuff that we have to schedule a time for, because a lot of us don't have someone that makes us do our homework at a certain time, as far as like an outside organization or something. So that's something done in-house. Extracurricular activities, we have less control over it. We meet every day after school from 3:30 to 5:30. It's a set time, and then you have to schedule things around that time. It's very important to think about having all your materials that you need and thinking about what you're going to do afterward. And of course, kids need a rest after they've been really duking it out with their sports and really running at full speed and all of that. So what are we going to do is make sure, okay, you have like a 30-minute ride home. You have a 20 minutes, 30 minutes to eat, and then we're going to start with homework. So again, help them think through what they need so they could get their work done. Again, thinking about juggling all of these things, some activities meet 5 days a week, some meet 4 days a week, some may meet twice a day. So we have to think about adjusting that schedule for different days and how that works. And sometimes they may have to be doing twice the amount of work, right? I'm going to give myself 2 hours for English today because I know that tomorrow I have a really long track meet and things like that. Again, track meet, games, sometimes those are less defined times. You might be there for 7 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours, especially when you have away games where you are taking a bus to a location. That could take hours and hours. So you have to, again, budget that into your time. Now, I'm a person who would bring my book. I would read on the bus. And again, some kids aren't able to do that. They have motion sickness or something like that. So it just depends. So help them think through what works for them. And then, of course, if they're overscheduled, because this happens, it's hard to manage time if you have 5 different activities, 6 classes, and you want them to do chores and homework. Like, when is this going to get done? You have to maybe choose. Okay, you're not going to do soccer and volleyball. You're not going to do this and this. Which one are you going to do? Got to really think about it. Now, this also goes into time management because, being realistic, right? When I was a junior in high school, I ended up taking several AP and honor classes. I was up to 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, every day trying to get all my work done. And then, of course, I had perfectionism. So it wasn't just getting work done, but getting done at a high level, really holding myself accountable, really driving myself crazy. Let's just be honest. Driving myself crazy. So, what would have been better, and what I did the second semester of my junior year is had less honors. Well, let me just tell you, I just got rid of all of my honors and AP classes after that. For the rest of the junior year and senior year, I didn't take any more. But I feel like a better choice would have been just to take 1 or take 2. Especially because I wanted to do track. I wanted to do these other activities. So you can just be honest with yourself about your time and make it manageable, because you could set yourself up for failure. And especially if you have a child that has perfectionism and stuff like that, they're going to try to push themselves to do everything. And they are just human. They do make mistakes. They do get tired. And the body just is like, nope, you got to rest, right? And so you can't get it done, because it was an unrealistic expectation. If you got 14 hours of homework per night, 6 hours of school, an hour-long commute there and back to home, extracurricular activities, 2 hours per day, like, when is this work going to get done? It's not. So just have to look and be honest with yourself and your kid, and help them understand. And I always say this, as parents, if you share your struggles with your child and talk about what works for you and what doesn't work for you and how you've overcome and things that you still struggle with, that will help them. And it'll help them to reflect on themselves and learn right? Because a lot of times when I was younger, I didn't talk to people about stuff. I felt embarrassed about it, and I just kept it to myself. Because for whatever reason, we are the star in our own lives. Everyone is. And we just think we're the only ones going through these issues. That's how I am. I don't know if everyone is, but that's how I was. In my mind, I just keep things in my head back then. I'm the only one who's going through it. No one else, everyone seems happy and is doing okay. And of course, that's not the truth. So the more we could share with our kids, you've been through teenage times, you've been maturing, you've been having to struggle with procrastination and all of this. So how do you deal with it? And that's part of it, knowing that you're an adult and this is something that you need to do. This gets you to that next phase where you want to be, right? Gets you to that promotion, gets you to that bag, right? Gets you to where you want to go. And so every part of what we're doing is not enjoyable and fun, but the maturity to get to where we want to go, we need to do these things. And so let's do it, right? And give yourself that grace. Embrace that, like, I don't want to do this. But for now, you're doing it. For now, you're doing it. Something I learned recently as I was, I've been listening on Audible to a book called Who Not How. And it was saying how procrastination, as you are trying to scale a business or you're trying to get to that next level, is a little bit of wisdom, meaning that it lets you know that maybe you need to hire someone, a who, to help you get something done. Now, obviously, when it comes to reports and different things like that, our kids are not able to do, hire someone to get this done. That would be considered cheating or whatever. They need to do their own reports and stuff like that. But it can be something that we indicate to them as they're getting older, right? As they are choosing their career. So maybe a career in writing may not be for you if you don't like writing reports. But of course, we want to make sure that you have solid skills in essay writing. Maybe you like writing poetry, so maybe you could be a poet when you get older. You don't like writing memos or sending emails, so maybe it would be better for you to have a personal assistant to do that kind of thing. So it could help clue them in to what their strengths are and some weaknesses. So as they get older, their time management can work, but it also clues them in on them. Time management, like many of the skills that we're learning, is also about getting to know yourself, your preferences, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and trying out strategies. And of course, it's a learning process. So of course, everything that I want to talk to you about, we're trying things new. Will there be failure? Absolutely, there will be failure. But trying and failing is inherent to the learning process. So reflect. What worked about that schedule? What didn't work? How did the Pomodoro method work for you? How did doing half and then chunking it half again work? So just thinking about what works for you, what doesn't work, and, giving yourself grace, right? Letting ourselves know, our kids know that we're going to try this out. We don't know the perfect outcome. We don't have the perfect schedule, but we're going to make a schedule. We're going to try it out, see how it works. Sometimes we'll make a schedule really tight so we don't have any time to eat. We don't have any time to sleep. And I've definitely done that. I've put 20 things on a to-do list and said, okay, that 30 minutes for this, 30 minutes for this. And then it was too much, right? You might, again, be thinking about days that you're going to do your English work, days you're going to do your math work. Sometimes people have a schedule, a block schedule, where they just only have certain class periods on certain days. So that gives them some time to, do that time management in a little different way, so they don't have to try to do all the work every day. Also, they may know that the English teacher wants the work at the end of the week. The math teacher may want the work every day, and it gives them, you have to get into analysis and thinking about, the unique details that will help you fit your schedule together in a successful way. Energy, right? How am I feeling? Am I very tired on a Tuesday because I have swim practice? Then I maybe just do reading that night as I'm laying in my bed. And maybe I'm not going to be up writing or up, working on a project. So just think about what makes sense for you and say, okay, I did really good on Monday. Again, I always want to say, as we're going through the learning process, of course, failure is part of it. Trying and failing is part of it. But you also want to give your child compliments. I always say encourage them because they are doing something right. And point out those things that they're doing right. Because if we're just thinking about the negative, we're just throwing everything out every time and we're really not able to build. So we want to build on what we have. Okay, I really did good with managing my English work. Didn't do so hot with the math work. The math work took a little bit longer. When I tried to do my science lab report, this took a little long, they could analyze that, but you point out you did good. You did your science project, you did your science lab report. It took you only 20 minutes. You were thinking it was going to take you an hour. So you could add some of that time to your English. And so now you know, right? It's okay. It took your math work twice as long as you thought it was going to take, but what did you learn? And, point out those positives because that's going to help move them forward. They're going to help build on what they know by noticing what they do well already and then get better at certain activities. So it is so important that we are pointing out positives so our kids can start looking at positives for themselves. And it's a balanced approach. It's not just you're trash, this isn't good, right? Because these are the things they may be saying to themselves. So you point out the positives and then eventually, like, what did you do good? Let's look at what you did well. And they could notice, you know what? I did really good on my time management on Thursday and Wednesday. I need to work on Friday. Friday, I'm distracted. And maybe you find out, okay, Friday, maybe you don't do homework on that day. But that means on Thursday, you got to do more homework. Or on Saturday afternoon, you need to do more homework. So just what are they learning and how are they growing? And that reflection piece is going to help them really move forward, not just in their development as they're teenagers, but as an adult, they could do the same thing. Thank you so much for joining us on the Falling for Learning podcast. We are so glad you chose to be with us today and listen in on what we have to say. And try out these time management techniques. Let us know how it works and have a wonderful week. Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.